today I wanted to do some top 5 breakouts, and I was trying to mix and match positions, Garrett.
Right.
And it got really difficult.
I can see that.
Yeah, so there's guys that, maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't, but are certainly game changers this year. And I'll do these kind of throughout the next couple weeks at different positions.
Okay.
I think I'll go offense, defense. People you haven't heard of. There's plenty. Look, we can talk about Brice Young, and we can talk about, Stetson Bennett all day long. Everybody knows who they are.
That's no fun.
Yeah, C.J. Stroud, but I thought we'd go through some of the top 5. And especially since I know that you were going to be doing this one with me, number 5 is Jordan Travis from Florida State.
You're the worst.
I just wanted to get to it first. I didn't want to build to it. I just wanted to rip the Band-Aid off. And I know this is a bit of a homer pick, but bottom line is their record with him the last 14 games he started is 10-4, I think. And I might be wrong. Please in the comments, don't get me wrong, but they are, when he starts a game, they are usually winning, and 2 of those are 1-score losses to Clemson and Florida, and a couple of mishmash games in there, but they win when he's in there. He's a game changer, and he's super fun to watch.
He's definitely the most consistent quarterback I've seen at Florida State since Jameis.
Yeah.
And he's really a game changer. The way he's versatile, really, he put LSU's defense on its heels the entire game.
Yeah.
And he's so magnificent to watch. He's also a guy that's got real sound control of the team. Like everybody, you don't see, it's like all eyes on him when he speaks. And I think that's something that you've seen lacking there for such a long time, man. But it's fun to watch him cut loose, and just having that front row seat, watching him torch LSU hurt, but it was good for the program because it's good when Florida State's, in my opinion.
And I'll tell you this, my opinion on LSU has changed in the last couple of weeks.
They've gotten better.
I think they've got a little bit more in their guts than I thought after that first game. Maybe that 99-yard drive woke them up and we're like, okay, we can do things if we really...
Well, they got humbled. I mean, I think they went into that game saying, oh, well, this is another game in New Orleans. We're just going to take care of business. And it's like, no, Florida State's not going to put up with that.
Yeah, and it was, that game is going to affect a lot of people's opinions of both these teams all year, even though there's going to navigate through. Florida State takes on Boston College this week. Number 4, Cameron Ward from Wazoo. We've talked about him a little bit on the show, but not a lot. He was at Incarnate Word last year, transferred up with his offensive coordinator to Washington State. To play for Jake Dykert, and they're fun. Washington State's fun. It's not just because of Cameron Ward. It has a lot to do with him. I feel like there's probably a lot of other schools, and there were schools in on him. Mm-hmm. It wasn't just Wazoo. He went with his offensive coordinator. There's probably a lot of schools wishing they'd hired the OC to take Cameron Ward with them.
I mean, there's plenty of schools inside of Texas. You could probably look at, North Texas is like one where you can make an argument. But, I mean, there's plenty of opportunities. It's interesting to watch what he's been able to do because even going back to Incarnate Word, you could really tell he was special. But there's only so much you can do with the talent around him.
Yeah.
So being able to go up there and get some more, and I know Washington State's not getting your 5 stars and 4 stars regularly like other programs are, but when you could put the pieces around him and just kind of cut him loose with the familiarity already in place, it's not the same. I don't want anybody to get this twisted, but it's not exactly what we're seeing at Oklahoma, but it's very similar with just new scenery, new players around you, and you can get more out of your system because of everybody that's glued.
Look, Dylan Gabriel was fun to watch at UCF until he got hurt. And we knew about him, and then all of a sudden you put him around Eric Gray and Marvin Mims and all these dudes.
Game over.
It's like, holy cow, he can do it. Cameron Ward's the same way. Look, Incarnate Word's a Catholic school. There's another Catholic school in South Bend, Indiana, that I bet is wishing they might have Cameron Ward right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 3, Chase Brice from App State, a well-traveled quarterback. He's been at 3 spots. He started out at Clemson. He was I want to say if he was the South Carolina or North Carolina, wherever he's from. Mm-hmm. And again, forgive my research. It's a Friday. But he was like one of the players of the year coming out. He was highly recruited. You wind up at Clemson. You're behind some dudes. You're behind the Deshaun Watsons of the world, and then obviously the Trevor Lawrences of the world, which he was behind Trevor Lawrence, and so he got lost in the shuffle there. But he has taken App State by storm. He had a really solid. He said he had a really solid game against North Carolina. A game they lost barely. That shouldn't even have been in based on the way the first half of the game went. Then. beats Texas A&M, and then wins at a Hail Mary against Troy the next week. He's a dude that's fun to watch, and I don't know what his football future is, but I'll tell you, if App State's on and I can watch him, I'll watch it because of Chase Brice. The guy's he's traveled, and most of the time when a dude's been to 3 schools, I kind of turn him off. But he's kind of the exception to that rule for me.
That's what I was going to say. Is like when you go, a lot of the times when we talk about the transfer portal, it's mostly the negatives, right? Like it's very rare that we talk about the positives that come out of it. But when you look at this situation with Chase, I think this is one where you could look at the Texas A&M game, for instance. He went into that situation while App State in its own came in like, oh, well, we're not intimidated. He has been in those environments before. And when you got that kind of confidence around you and you can go into a system as well established as App State's, I think you're going to see him flourish. And, I'm not really surprised by what he's been able to do there. But as far as, the next step, I don't know that he'll necessarily do anything in the NFL, but he's definitely somebody who could go and be an analyst or come back and coach because he's got a lot of knowledge up there and learn from under Dabo. And I mean, there's so much stuff that he's picked up and intangibles that he could pass on. But he's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, he's from Georgia. He's from Logan'sville, Georgia. So, he was highly touted coming out of Georgia and going to Clemson. Then he went to Duke after that. Number 2. Michael Penix Jr. From Washington. Maybe you knew a little bit about him. He had a good season in Indiana a couple years ago. Got hurt, transferred to Washington. He and Kalen DeBoer have people believing in UW again. And some of those recruits that they had held over from the pre-Jimmy Lake 2 or 3 years that was post Chris Peterson, and they've got guys that can play at Washington. They're fun. The Pac-12 is wide open. I know USC looks really good. Utah's returning a lot of guys. Oregon looks like they might be able to grab some momentum, but that sounds to me I'm describing a wide open league. The Pac-12 is wide open. Washington can very much contend for this league, especially when you got a guy like Michael Penix and the running backs and wide receivers that they have making plays all over the field right now. Not as good on defense as you probably want for a team that's going to win the conference title, but with him there, it doesn't much matter because he's making plays all over the place.
No, he is. He's a really solid asset to what they bring, and that's another situation where, sometimes it's just a new scenery that can bring out the most in you, and he's done some good things in the past, but it's interesting to see what he could do. I like the system he's in, and I think it's unique because Washington and Oregon are both in this situation, in my opinion, where all eyes are on them. And he does a good job of kind of handling the pressure and not letting that get to him. It kind of capitalizing and making up for the lack of help that they do get on the defensive end.
Yeah, absolutely. And then look, they're not awful there, but there's something to be desired. Yeah. Especially Michigan State started to creep back into that game the other day. They had to make some stops, but it was pretty much in hand. And number 1, and singing his praises all throughout Lawrence, Kansas, Jalen Daniels is so much fun to watch. By the ghost of Todd Reesing, the only other Kansas quarterback that you'd really want to talk about. As far as winning and regularly there, Jalen Daniels has got this team 3-0. I think they're going to be 4-0 against Duke. I don't think this game is going to be that close. I think that Kansas will score some points. Now, I do think Duke's going to make some stops and probably early. I just think that Kansas has too much offense, and it's mostly because of this dude right here. He's really coming to his own and just makes plays with his legs, with his arm. Lance Leipold has that offense humming. Duke's probably going to score more points this week than they would normally because Kansas's defense is still lacking. But Jalen Daniels is breathing life into a program that was completely lifeless and so fun to watch. And I would make an argument that right now he is the most fun player in the country to watch.
You can say
there's
that.
A lot. I mean, there's the running back Singleton at Penn State's really cool. And, I know C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young and all those guys are fun. Stetson Bennett's been really awesome. But Jalen Daniels, especially maybe it's just given the situation and the story, I'm having fun watching him play.
I think that, first off, we wouldn't even be talking Kansas football if it wasn't for Jalen Daniels.
Yeah.
So, and he's one of those that you can just kind of tune in and you never know what you're going to expect. He's got kind of that Johnny Manziel magic in a sense. But he's dynamic in what he brings from a leadership standpoint. And a lot of times we see players and teams kind of take the identity of their coach. And I think that he does that on the field, kind of taking what Lance Leipold is telling him out there and getting everybody to buy in collectively as a group. But yeah, I mean, he's a lot of fun. He's really talented. good, and it's exciting to see where he can take Kansas as the season progresses. But I mean, he's tremendous, dude.
Yeah, and I'm excited to see where they can go. Look, if they get a win today, then to get to a bowl game, they've got to find 2 more.
Oh yeah,
and there'll be teams that ebb and flow in the Big 12, just like they will ebb and flow because they're going to play Oklahoma eventually, and that's probably not something they're ready for. But a game they were in for 3 quarters last year until a miracle Caleb Williams play. You don't know. Like this team, I think there's a factor where the best thing that's happened to them, other than the fact that they're winning, is now you cannot chalk it up as long as we are in this game in the fourth quarter, we're gonna beat Kansas, because that's not the case anymore.
Well, I also think like a lot of it too is when you look at the matchups is, well, I think you first gravitate like quarterbacks, right? Like who is your quarterback matchup? And for instance, when you talk about Kansas, and I'm looking at the rivalry with Kansas State, I think that's a game where if you look at the paper, I'm taking Daniels over Martinez.
Yeah.
And I think that's a situation where that could be one of those games that could mean a lot, all the emotion going into it, that they could kind of sneak out that one win there and maybe find another one along the way. But the fact that he has Kansas undefeated and on a national radar is just amazing to me.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing. This list was going to be 5 things that George Kliavkoff should have put in the letter to the Cal Board of Regents to get UCLA to stay, but I found that sad. So
yeah, we don't need a crowd on Friday.
I don't know why he even, I know why he's got to write the letter, but at the end of the day, come on, buddy.
He just needs to stop. Just
not
quit,
gonna,
man.
It's not
Cut
going
it
to
out.
change anything.
No.
Write a letter to the Pope too. Like just write letters to whoever.
Just send them out abroad.
And just say like, hey, this is going to be bad if UCLA goes to the Big Ten, and because he's also in the letter not stating his figures, but we've talked about that already. But yeah,
I was gonna say, but even if you keep him, like, what the hell are you gonna do? You just ruined your relationship.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, they're not gonna trust you.
Yeah,
that's a mess, man.
Yeah, it's like tricking your wife into not divorcing you.
Yeah,
and then when she wakes up, she's gonna be like, "Wait a minute,
this is fine.
Nothing's changed." Yeah, no. I don't want to go to your in-laws' house this weekend. I don't want to do that.
Yes.
That's why we're getting divorced. All right, that's going to do it for us.